some photographers were lucky enough to encounter their dearest animal friends from up close, perhaps a little too close on occasion. You invade my space, I'll invade yours.
I've seen a few videos where it's a wildlife photographer and they'll just sit there patiently, and I'm like...
The animals have been studied for over 20 decades by scientists and documentarians, which means they're completely habituated to having photographers around. Some would even say they get a little too comfortable around us. Like these meerkats, who not only came incredibly close to those two wildlife cameramen, but even took some mid-afternoon shade just under their buttocks.
You hear that guy just say buttocks?
Who gave a wildlife photographer a little more than he bargained for, when it climbed onto his head and used him as a tall lookout post to scan for potential predators and look out for its young. Seems like a pretty fair deal, seeing as they make for some pretty cute stories.
I'm not cool with wild animals, but that was kind of cool. Like, I could appreciate that if that happened, but at the same time I wouldn't let it happen, because as soon as some wild animal's touching me, I'm out. No thanks. None of that. Yeah. I'm adventurous. I'd love to go do some nature photography. But just chilling there with an animal on your head is not my forte.
Polar bears are one of the most iconic animals on Earth, and yet we don't know so much about them. But all that changed when wildlife cameraman Gordon Buchanan embarked on a dangerous...
I thought there was snow in his hair at first.
Gordon set up a protective observatory cage. Unfortunately, the wild bear caught Gordon's scent and walked right past the hole and straight towards his box. Gordon was overwhelmed with fear as the predator tried to claw, bite, and break through the box to make a meal out of him. Thankfully, she gave up and decided to move on. Phew.
At least this guy was smart enough to have a box. That's some protection. And I'm not saying meerkats are like dangerous. If you're inside of something, sure. But if you're just chilling out there, no thank you.
1 minute you're taking a few photos of a lion pride from a safe distance.
Define safe distance. Because if I see a lion, I'm getting in the car and driving as far away as possible. Or I would be in the car taking the photos, not outside of a car. Define safe distance. That's all I'm saying.
A curious 300-pound lioness is so close, she's sniffing. It was just another day at the office for wildlife photographer Graham Springer when he encountered a pride of lions peacefully roaring in the early morning.
Define peacefully. It's a lion.
Graham did not have enough time to get into his car and had no choice but to stand still and wait out the lioness while she curiously investigated him and his camera gear. It was one of the most nerve-wracking moments of his life, he said, but he was glad the lioness did make breakfast out of him.
There's a reason I do street photography. That had to be so invigorating to be that close, especially for a photographer always looking for chances like that. But that is insane. You saw his face, he's like...
Number 4. Whale protects diver from shark. When a 40-ton humpback whale swam toward her, tucked her under its pectoral fin, and even maneuvered her out of the water with its back. Hauser was frightened and unsure whether the whale was playing or trying to hurt her. Hauser's point of view footage shows just how persistently the whale was nudging her, until she finally made it out of the water and onto her boat. She said she saw a tiger shark lurking closely behind the whale and concluded that the whale had been trying to save her life for the last 10 minutes.
When I see underwater like that, it just makes me... The thought of touching a whale just makes me... I plan to go scuba diving at some point just because of the fact that that's a fear. Like, that's... I'm going to... I was researching where to go at one point, and there's a place in Chicago where you can go inspect sunken ships. I'm not doing it there, I can tell you that much. I looked at examples of when people have gone. You have to use a flashlight because it's so dark, and there's just pictures of these old boats, you know, they're covered in green stuff or whatever. I couldn't even watch the video barely. It was so bad. Needless to say, when I do it, it'll be clear seawater in Hawaii or something like that. Not that that's any better because there's definitely sharks there, but at least I can see. Either way, I hate it, but I have to do it because that's just how I am.
Was taking pictures of a lion pride from her group's 4x4 in the Mashatu Game Reserve in Botswana when a valuable piece of equipment fell out of the car and onto the ground. As soon as the photographer dropped her $2,500 camera, a protective lioness jumped up and moved towards the vehicle to...
The lens is another $2,000, so that's $4,000. Around there.
She came so close, the exploration party had to retreat.
Did that lion just open the door? Apparently, you're not good if you're in the car. Lions can open car doors. Did you know that?
Snatched up Jensen's camera and telephoto lens in her mouth and carried it a distance before giving it to her cubs, who then pounced on their new toy and began playing with it, chewed on the lens hood, and then fortunately, like most kids, soon grew tired with their new toy and left it behind. Jensen found it was working perfectly aside from teeth marks across the surfaces. Because it was only aesthetic damage, she never had it repaired. Because, let's be honest, what photographer can show off that their lens had been inside a lion's mouth?
What sucks is if they didn't get it back, she just lost all her pictures. But it's super cool that now she has a perfectly working camera with lion teeth marks on it.
After introducing Cecil as one of the world's rarest sheep breeds, the park staff member went on to explain that allowing humans into their space had made these sheep a little too confident around people. Cecil, in fact, showed no fear as he rammed his head into the worker's leg, which should have acted as a warning for the cameraman. However, moments later...
I wonder how hard they hit. I have no clue.
The cameraman kneeled onto the ground to get a closer shot of Cecil, and while at first he cautiously placed his hands in front of his groin, he eventually removed them, giving the sheep a straight shot. Cecil got right to it and whacked the man right between the legs, making him drop to the ground in pain.
This guy's an idiot. I'm sure he's used to being around animals. It was just a stupid thing to even be in that position in the first place, and you saw him eyeing you right there. To me, the underwater one was worse. But just being underwater is bad to me because it makes you uncomfortable. But yeah. Dubai.